We will get started here. Perfect. All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on what side of the country you're on or potentially the world. It is Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific here in California. Probably going to be the last Q&A AMA of the year, and we will start this back up, I would say, the second week of January. Today, I'm just going to go through some of the updates that we have released as of today, and then a couple of big updates that are coming on the way on Friday as well as Monday. And then probably we'll try to squeak out one or two things next week. So be on the look for all of those updates outside of this Zoom in our newsletter that shall be announcing this as well. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Brett, can you give me the power to share?
Should be good.
Perfect. And for those who don't know me, my name is Nate Fischer. I am the CTO here at the local Viking local brand manager family. So to get started, the first thing we have here, if you are in your scheduled GeoGrid section, the latest update as of this morning, which many people have been asking for, is this ability to perform bulk actions. So you can now select all of your GeoGrid configs or any number of them, and you can have them generate a config or generate a GeoGrid without having to click into each of them. You can actually also bulk tag them. And then you can mass delete as well as mass undelete. So if you have scheduled configs that you accidentally deleted, you can return those back into the fold. Now, the next thing that we just released, which this is kind of a teaser for what's going to be coming here in January, but we have been doing a lot of work to prep the big Q1 feature of next year, which we'll get into. But the first thing I want to point out is for any GeoGrid point that you have, you can now click into it. And this is only for new GeoGrid points, so your historical data isn't going to have this. But for anything that you run today and into the future, if you click into any grid, the categories section here is brand new. So we are now pulling out all of the primary and subcategories from every listing within a given search result. So what this is going to do is form the basis of something I'll talk about here in a few minutes. But you can imagine that as you're doing research, looking at maybe a niche that you're getting into or a niche that you're already into with a client or maybe one of your own businesses, you can now do some category-based analysis. And we're going to start pulling this out into a more visual format so you can see some pie charts and really at a glance determine if there are any categories that you might want to use for a listing or perhaps categories that you are using that maybe you don't want to use. So this is the result of a lot of engineering work that has been going on behind the scenes. And it is something that I'm very excited for, something that I think a lot of agencies and a lot of small businesses are going to get pretty good usage out of. And so in just a few minutes here, I'm going to cover what the kind of long-term vision is here around this, but just pointing out this new category data. So after that, the next thing, which unfortunately was supposed to be live last week, is scheduled for Friday, is the ability for you to actually create, and let me go ahead and just pull up any random search here, the ability for you to create custom GeoGrid shapes. So that is the ability to disable and enable any of the GeoGrid points. One of the lagging things that we had kind of left behind was the fact that all of our GeoGrid reports, so the PNG that you export, as well as the GeoGrid GIF or GIF, depending on how you want to say that, those also need to follow suit. So that is scheduled for Friday here. The other thing that is also coming Friday which let me move my Zoom video here. I'm just going to show you our Figma here since it's not fully live, but this goes to our GeoBooster widget. So right now, if you are familiar, let me just quickly hop in here. We have on the settings page the ability for you to install GeoBooster via a JavaScript snippet. So you are no longer tied to just being able to deploy the GeoBooster widget on a WordPress site. You can now deploy it on any site. That is just something you'd come in here, cut and paste the widget, throw it onto a landing page, and toggle some of the settings that are in this help doc. What is happening this week is this UI here is being deployed. So essentially, you are going to be able to configure the GeoGrid or the GeoBooster widget. And so you can come here, you can see you're going to be able to completely customize the theme, how it's going to look when it shows up on the page, the different markers that show up on the map. You can choose the date format, since we do have a fair bit of customers that are in Europe, which has a slightly different date format than we do here in North America. You'll also be able to associate the businesses that you want for a particular widget. So in that case, let's say you had, this is a bit of a bad UI example from an informational perspective, but let's say you had like a pest control client and they have 5 or more than one listing. You will be able to configure the widget so that you can pull in all of the moments that the GeoBooster app creates into the widget, and then you will be able to kind of slice and dice and direct what particular pages that gets pushed to. The last bit here is just the snippet cut and paste code. So again, this is going to be the initial iteration of functionality here. Over the next quarter, we're definitely going to be adding a lot more. But this is something we've been working really hard on and almost ready to release. That is going to be on Friday as well, possibly Monday. Don't quote me on the Friday there. The next big thing that's happening is a general GeoGrid UI refresh. So one of the large endeavors that we embarked on that turned into a significantly larger engineering adventure is that we pulled our GeoGrid infrastructure from local brand manager and local Viking and moved it upstream. We also spent a borderline heinous amount of time working on our own infrastructure for crawling organic Google search results. We are through the other side of that painful experience, crawling Google search at scale, which is significantly more difficult than crawling Google Maps at scale. So we have kind of combined that into a platform that sits upstream and feeds local Viking and local brand manager. The UI there actually looks a lot sexier than the current local Viking GeoGrid UI. So we are migrating that over, and that is scheduled for Monday. So expect on Monday morning, California time, a nice visual refresh of the grid as well as the map and kind of the pins, and then the visual where the actual heat map shows up. So all of that is getting a visual refresh. Another note here I have, let me try to pull this up. So one thing that has honestly been a bit of an annoyance, and this is my fault only because this page is a pain in the behind to work with. We have audited our roadmap for the last probably year, and we've added some things in the future, what we're working on in Q1 and Q2 of 2023. So if you are interested in seeing kind of what exactly we did, I know some things shuffled around. We did other things that we weren't expecting and moved back some things that we were expecting. So all of that is now accurately reflected here in the local Viking feature roadmap. If you are a local brand manager user, go ahead and pop over to this page as well. It's basically the exact same software under the hood. We just don't have this fancy roadmap page on the LBM side. So that is something that has been nagging for a couple of months, and we finally went through and were able to get that updated. One thing I'm noticing here as I'm scanning is that I do need to add one major thing here. So going back to what I had referenced earlier in regards to the categories showing up, one of the really big things that we're going to be working on, or that we've already started working on really, is a GMB auditing functionality. So the functionality is going to sit basically at every single location that you have. It's going to be a new tab in your local Viking or local brand manager dashboard. And you'll be able to select competitors that you want to benchmark or base the audit against your listing on. And we're going to go through and essentially swallow up as much data as possible from each of these GMB listings. You may be familiar with some tools on the market that have an auditing feature. One of the things that we've been spending a bunch of time on is pulling back more data around reviews, around posts, and around photos. So actually not even staying with the high level numbers, but really digging all the way down into as much data as we can pull back from Google from all those perspectives, so we can kind of give an actual view of both the velocity that all of your competitors are gaining reviews at, as well as posting photos and posting GMB posts. I know that is an often requested feature. One of the things that had been holding us back there is that the way that we work with our geogrids is at a very large scale. I think the last time I checked, we had crawled Google Maps over 2.2 billion times since our inception in 2017. So with that in mind, and our kind of engineering, we actually don't really interact with Google Maps the same way that really any other platform does, where we don't spin up an actual browser. We use internal APIs from Google Maps that we reverse engineered to pull out that data. So that was great to get us to scale with our geogrids. The unfortunate thing is that when you want to do an audit, you need to actually pull up a browser so that you can render the page, catch a bunch of requests from Google to get the historical reviews, all of the posts, and all of the photos. So in order to accomplish that, we spent the last month with a couple of our best engineers standing up a new microservice, if you will, where we are now pulling Google Maps data from an emulated browser in a way that we weren't before. So that is going to be something that we're going to start releasing, I imagine, the end of January in a structured capacity. A big plan of mine from an organizational perspective is to work with the engineering team and work on a more iterative release cycle. A lot of times we'll kind of hold back functionality, QA it, add features, do all this stuff to our features before we actually release anything. Next year, a big goal of mine is to be releasing a lot earlier and a lot more often. So that is something that most engineering teams try to do anyway, but over the years, we've gotten not complacent, but just a little bit used to spending longer engineering cycles because we do have thousands of customers. And if you release a little tiny bug to a couple thousand customers, it turns into a giant nightmare for our team. So just a little heads up there in terms of what our Q1 2023 is going to look like. Other than that, something that is hopefully going to be done by the end of the year, but isn't quite yet, let me see, is the GeoBooster video support. So previously, if you had listened to any of my previous webinars or even up to last year, one of the things that was frustrating me is that the GMB or the GBP API didn't support videos. And Google had said they were going to support it almost 4 years ago. I had heard through the grapevine that they weren't going to support videos through the API because of the kind of mass low quality content that the world collectively had generated for GMB posts. So finally, silently, which is kind of Google's MO for releasing things. Video support is now available in the GBP API. So we are actually going to be able to post videos from the local Viking or local brand manager dashboard, and those are going to go live to your GMBs. We are in the middle of testing. We're already successfully posting some videos. Looks like we have to determine the exact format, size, and kind of, I guess, display that Google wants, since there's not a bunch of documentation around it. So with all that being said, the GeoBooster app, which I have on my phone, and if you are a local Viking user, I recommend you should have on your phone, is going to support videos as well as our pictures. So not only will you be able to take before and after pictures, or pictures while your team is doing business or your client's team is doing business, you will now also be able to grab videos direct from the phone and have those propagate all the way through to your website with the JavaScript snippet or the WordPress plugin, and then also posting to the GBP or your GMBs. These social channels such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we are still doing some analysis on how we can push that through, because right now we have a Zapier integration for those, and we'll have to shuffle around the videos that we're currently storing on S3. So just a little bit of a note there. In terms of other Q1 and Q2 things that we're doing next year, so we will be embarking on what is known as an SSO integration between Repco or Rep.co, which is our reputation management suite. If you haven't seen that, highly recommend checking it out. Can definitely replace a lot of the tools that are on the market that are at a higher price point with oftentimes less features. And then I had scheduled this Google Data Studio. Bucky, if you're listening, this was one of the big requests from the Web20 team. The unfortunate problem that I think the entire internet is running into right now is that Google Data Studio, now rebranded as Looker, has put some pretty hard data limits on GDS reports. And if you are on Reddit, on the Google Data Studio subreddit, which I often frequent, or on the Google support forum, you can see the internet is really littered with people that have broken GDS reports. A lot of enterprise customers have broken GDS reports, and even going all the way down to small mom and pop shops. So they introduced that on November 8th. And it seems like the industry is shuffling. I know a lot of people are moving towards BigQuery to be able to hold on to their Google Analytics or GA4 data without having to upgrade to Analytics 360, which can be a 6-figure per year engagement with Google. That was a long way to say this here, I would say, is tentative. I'm going to do a bit more analysis. I would hate to spend more time engineering against the GDS API, only to have nobody be able to use it except for companies that are paying Google 6 figures a year. So that is something that I'll be reviewing over the Christmas break here. And hopefully by the time I'm done with that, there's somebody that has found a solution to have their GDS reports back without having to pay Google an arm and a leg for analytics or any type of data. So small update there. In terms of Q3 and Q4 of next year, we are going to be having meetings and prioritizing features and functionality. One of the things that we were going to do was embark on an adventure in the citation tracking world. I am actively kind of poking and prodding at Google, seeing how much Google search is going to hate us for hitting them a bunch, looking for citations for all of our local businesses. We do have, at this point, hundreds of thousands of listings connected into Local Viking, local brand manager. So when we do something like that, we are at a scale that we can very easily hit very tough engineering problems when it comes to crawling Google for data. So just a little bit of updates there. Again, we have a lot of updates coming Friday, a couple coming Monday. Be on the lookout for our Friday newsletter. Those all will be articulated and documented there. We'll be updating help docs as we go. And we will also probably release a bit of an email maybe mid next week. Brett, remind me on that when we do some deployments over the weekend or on Monday. Other than that, we are operating at, I would say, slightly minimal customer support levels. So if you are hitting us up on live chat, Brett and Jen should be there in US Eastern hours today. I know we're going to be taking some vacations here over the next couple of days and regrouping early next week, and then probably breaking again for the new year. We also have a little bit of a dead period where a lot of our engineers are out of Eastern Europe. I had lived in Kiev for many years, building and growing the team. So unfortunately, the Orthodox Christmas holiday hits on January 7th, I believe. So we really have a kind of nice holiday dead space where we won't be engineering too hard after next week. So that'll give us kind of time to regroup, really focus on this GMB auditing functionality, and pull together a lot of this data that we have been gathering. Outside of that, I don't really have too many updates. I know there are some Google updates rolling out this month, this Spam Brain update that looks like it's maybe targeted at GPT-3 content. Perhaps next month when we come back, I may do a Wednesday session here on GPT-3. It has been something that I've been playing with for quite a while, but now my Facebook feed is filled with nothing but SEOs talking about how either GPT-3 is the greatest thing since sliced bread or the worst thing. So maybe I'll let the noise die down a little bit. And we do have some potential functionality that I'm going to try to get done here personally over the Christmas break, where we may be hooking into the magic that is OpenAI and generate FAQs for your GMB listings on the fly. That is something we are kind of internally talking about and debating. And I know there's a whole world of whether or not you should be using AI content for SEO purposes, whether or not Google can even identify it, depending on the length of the content. So that is something that I will probably release as a beta feature over the next week and a half here. I will be off a bit next week in Wyoming, so I should have some extra time to sit around and look at that. Bucky, I bet you will test that. It's pretty magical. Remind me, we should hop on a call, Bucky. I'll show you what I have working here internally. It is pretty fantastical how OpenAI does what it does. So could be something pretty cool. I'm sure inevitably, just given our user base, there will be people that love it and some people that hate it. So we will figure that out. Another thing that is on my mind as I look here at infrastructure updates, over the last quarter, we did a ton of work from the engineering side, migrating all of our infrastructure into AWS. We previously had used AWS for years for some of our external services that needed to scale a lot quicker than the rest of our infrastructure. So we bit the bullet and went ahead and migrated everything over. So the entirety of the local Viking, local brand manager ecosystem should be securely in place in AWS. I know it was a little bit of a bumpy road as we were migrating service by service over. That is all done, and we should have a much more stable, and we were already scalable, but even more scalable system today than we did even a month ago. So please hit us up on live chat if you do see anything weird. Again, GeoGrid updates came out, mass bulk GeoGrid functionality. So if you are a large GeoGrid user with a large scheduled GeoGrid tab, This is something that should come as a welcome gift. The amount of work we did to kind of optimize this for our larger users was pretty intense. Not that anybody on this call cares, but we are pretty big table nerds here at the local Viking engineering team. We custom built this table that's under the hood. One of our best front end guys did. So this has gone through a ton of optimizations so that it is a lot more performant. The amount of scheduled geogrid data that we're managing here in the back end is pretty ginormous. We also didn't have a great data retention policy for the last 5 years. So we have amassed a huge amount of geogrid data from both the scheduled geogrid configuration perspective, but also the geogrids themselves. So that has been a fun engineering challenge, dealing with billions of data points in a database that is meant for that, but it's a little bit hard to tweak and toggle it and get it to play nice. So again, all of those updates are either out today or coming Friday. Be on the lookout for our Friday email to really articulate those. And then if anybody has any questions, we're coming up on the 30-minute mark. I didn't really have a time scheduled. Let me quickly glance at my calendar. I don't think I'm on another call for a bit. So if anybody has any questions, it can be about local Viking, about local brand manager, could be about anything local SEO. I have been pretty actively engaged in SEO campaigns, from everything ranging from small to medium-sized businesses all the way up to pretty large entities. I am unfortunately down in the trenches for probably 40 plus hours a week, looking at SEO campaigns, running audits, debugging things. So any questions, comments, concerns, anything from your side, Bucky? Any cool Web 20 tests being run?
Dude, we're always running cool tests. We do have a new little, I'll call it a software, but it's very small, that it's a hidden content kind of thing that we tested a couple of weeks ago and are still actively testing. That could be very beneficial, and we may end up productizing it, but all tests are pointing towards it's working really well, and the things that are hidden are definitely indexing and creating keyword relevance. So pretty cool stuff there.
Awesome. I know I've actually been running some tests with some indexation software with Emily from your team and Chaz. I gotta actually check that today. I know indexation has been a hot topic over the last couple of months here in the SEO industry. If you have location pages, probably want to give those a double check and make sure that those are still indexed. Google has been ripping pages left and right out of their index, and people have been struggling to get those back in, particularly location pages. So if you're running a location page strategy where you just have one location page for every GMB, you should be okay. If you're not, then you definitely did something wrong. But if you have a ton of pages where you don't really have a GMB, sometimes called doorway pages, then those you're going to want to look at. And Art of Headshot Studios, what's going on, Art?
Yes, hi, I'm Carlos. So my company is called Art of Headshots, and our number one, we have studios in Canada and some in the States now, and our number one keyword is headshots. I just got a recent trademark with our company and our name. How can I build authority around the trademark that we just retained? Is there a way that I can somehow give Google the information that we're quite exclusive because of the trademark, or no?
That's a great question. So the trademark is your brand?
Correct. So I got a trademark my brand, and with the word headshots as well.
Got it. So at the end of the day, building authority is really a matter of, number one, having the proper citations that you should have. having backlinks that are authoritative and niche relevant or geo relevant pointing to your site. I'm sure there are places that you can gain extra links now that you do have that trademark. To be completely transparent, this is something that really doesn't enter. This might be the first time I've ever been asked a question in regards to trademarks and building authority. But in terms of what to do there, I would just make sure that you're continuously building links that are conservative from an anchor text perspective. So links that say the name of your brand versus say the product or service that you're providing. And really just continuously beat on that, Carlos. That's really going to be kind of the drum beat that you should be marching to next year. And how old is the business?
It's 11 years old.
Okay, so Bucky just dropped in the entity stack, which looks like domain authority stack, link building plus knowledge graph, SEO. Bucky, maybe you can comment a bit on those magical words you just typed in.
Yeah, so I didn't want to hijack it, but that's basically exactly what we built this product out to do, is build the authority of specific brands and or entities. So I mean, it's a product over at Web20. And don't hesitate to reach out, Art, if you want to jump on web20ranker.com and just jump in chat and ask any questions about it. But it's biohub links, and that's exactly what it's built out to do, is build the authority of a brand and or entity.
Actually, real quick, if you can just drop your email address in the Zoom chat, I'll put you guys in touch and make sure this doesn't slip between the cracks.
Perfect. Or if you don't want to get, I guess nobody in here looks like they're going to steal your email. Awesome, Carlos. Yep. And then just an intro there. Bucky comes from our kind of sister company, if you will, Web20 Ranker. Myself, Mark Luckenbaugh, and Chaz are kind of the owners of the local Viking, local brand manager ecosystem. Mark and Chaz are over at Web20. They have a nice team there that does a ton of SEO testing. They run millions and millions and millions of dollars a year in local SEO campaigns. They are really battle tested in terms of what it takes to rank in the maps. And we are very good friends. People in the past have said that when Bucky and I are together collectively, we are known as Nucky. So hopefully there'll be a conference that Bucky and I can link up at again soon. But that is web20ranker.com. And if you are looking for kind of client-facing wholesale services, they are a very good vendor to be going with. I am oftentimes meeting with a lot of the team over there, either from the engineering perspective or from the local SEO perspective. All right, I think that is probably going to do it for today. I do want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah or whatever holiday it is that you happen to enjoy at this time of the year, or maybe you don't celebrate holidays at all. In that case, enjoy your time off. I will be here pretty much around the clock from today through probably Friday. Should be taking a little bit of time off next week. But as always, if you need to get a hold of us, feel free to email support@Local Viking. You can also hit up the live chat directly in either of the dashboards, Local Viking or Local Brand Manager, to get a hold of Brett or Jen. And you will also be able to email me direct, Nate@Local Viking. However, if you do that, I do request that you CC support@Local Viking, just so Jen or Brett or some of the other team members can keep me honest with responding to emails, since I do get inundated with those at a pretty frequent basis. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and we will send out this recording if you want to watch it again, or if you missed any part of it, as soon as Zoom processes it. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys.